Hey man, let's talk about the heart attack on Monday Night Raw, September 10th, 2012. Monday Night Raw, was it soon into the broadcast, middle of the show? Take me through this. What happens? Do you start feeling dizzy? Was there any lead up to this? What happened that night?
Well, if anybody remembers that night, I had a match. You know, a lot of times, and I love it when they do it. They would include me in the show some sort of way and involve me in a match, and still do the commentary at the same time. So start out the show doing the commentary, and then they had me involved in a match where it was me and Randy Orton against CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler. And so I remember, I got up and I went up and did the match, and I've watched it back several times. It was a hell of a match. I mean, I'm always conscious of when I'm in there with those guys. Hey, you got to hang with these young guys, man.
Right.
This is a young man's business, and it's just a thrill to be included in a match every now and then on here. So, but you don't want to look out of place. You don't want to look like, oh my gosh, what's this guy? Why they got this guy in there? So, I'm looking at the match, and I'm jumping doing dives off the second rope and all of these sorts of things, drop kicks and that, and everything went fine in the match. I do remember, Steve, I'll still say that this was the partial cause of this thing. I remember, and if you watch Dolph Ziggler's matches, this guy's amazing young talent.
Yeah, yes,
great, and he's really energetic and he's really enthusiastic, and sometimes he gets a little overly enthused, and he does this move where he'll drop 10 straight elbows on his opponent. Get you down. Well, he had me down in the middle of the ring, and he starts dropping these elbows. And I remember at about number 6 or 7, I'm thinking, what the hell happened to the day when we used to be able to do this and not kill our opponent? Right? I actually remember thinking that because he was dropping these elbows with every bit of his weight, and I'm thinking, Jesus, this guy's trying to kill me. And so, he goes through 10 of those, and then of course we finished the match, and oh gosh, Randy Orton and I we won the match, and then I come back over and I sit down doing commentary, and I felt fine. Everything was great.
Right.
And literally, it was the strangest thing, and it's still even strange to talk about it because I'm sitting there. Then I think the next match started, which was Kane and Daniel Bryan against the Titus O'Neil and Darren Young, I believe. Anyway, I remember that match is going. And literally, Steve, I promise you, it's as if I'm watching that match and I'm talking to Michael Cole. I'm doing the commentating, and it was as if I'm looking up at the ring and I blink my eyes, and when I open them again, I was in the hospital with a ventilator down my throat, my girlfriend at my side in Montreal, Canada, and it was 2 days later.
Wow.
I mean, I had no warning. I had no bad feeling. A lot of times people say, oh, you'll have tingling in your arm, you'll have tightness of your chest or hard to breathe or anything. Nothing. Literally, it was like, I blinked my eyes, I woke up 2 days later. And I honestly believe, and in talking to my cardiologist, I think that those elbows may have had an effect. In other words, what I had was a sudden cardiac arrest. It
right.
was not the typical heart attack that was caused by blockage or clogged arteries or anything like that. It was just, and people suffer these. They say somebody dies every 90 seconds in the United States of a sudden cardiac arrest, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just your heart stops for one reason or other, and if there's not some way to get it started again, you're dead. And had this happened to me an hour later or 2 hours later, and I'd been driving or been back in my hotel room by myself, that would have been it. I would have been gone. Just fortunately, our Dr. Mike Sampson, our ringside physician, was right there next to me, and the paramedics in the back gave me CPR. My heart just stopped. I mean, it didn't start beating again for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's
they worked on me and gave me CPR for 20 straight minutes until they finally hit me with the defibrillator with those paddles 7 times before they got my heart started again. But the funny thing was, when you have a sudden cardiac arrest and your heart stops, if you have the proper CPR and they can get your heart started back again, a lot of times it just kicks right back in, and there's no damage. And it's not like it's not like where your heart, if you had a clogged artery and suddenly part of your heart is deprived of blood flow and oxygen, and that part just dies off. Well, I didn't suffer any damage to my heart, no scarring or anything like that. Thanks to the CPR, but once they got my heart started back again, It was as if it didn't happen.
Well, I remember hearing about it
I
happen.
felt from that moment on, and until today, if I didn't know it happened, you couldn't convince me that I really had a heart attack.
Well, I remember hearing about it, through the news, and I was, everybody thought, oh, when he comes around, he's going to have some brain damage, and you didn't. You returned back to normal.
Well, I think that was because that was the word went out that my heart didn't beat for 20 minutes.
Right.
And I think what most people figured was my brain and the rest of my body was deprived of blood flow, because, of course, that's what your heart does for that 20 minutes. But thank God it was Mike Sampson, our WWE doctor, and two other paramedics from there in Montreal, and they took turns. Because they did it with such force, it
They're
did
blown
actually
up.
crack one of my ribs.
Oh, yeah.
And they did it with such force. It would have been impossible for one person to do that continuously for 20 minutes. But the three of them were able to take turns and keep that blood with that pressure, keep the blood flowing throughout my body and to my brain, that I suffered no ill effects whatsoever.
All right, so check it out. You're waking up in the hospital. You got a breathing tube down your throat. What are you thinking? You see your girl there. The last thing you remember is watching the match.
Right.
What's going through your mind?
Well, and my girlfriend and I, Lauren, had been in Aruba the week before on a wrestling, did a wrestling show down there, and a sort of a kind of combination vacation, working trip to Aruba, and I didn't remember, when what was going through my mind was I didn't immediately remember the match, or that I had been at Monday Night Raw when it happened, and I couldn't even talk with that thing down my throat. So I was trying to write, and we've saved it. I've still got it over here somewhere in the stack of papers. The note that I wrote to her, and the first thing I wrote was, Are we in Aruba? I thought we were possibly still there. I did remember that part.
Yeah.
And then she explained to me, but a lot of the stuff I don't remember. And they say that's one of the things that is an after effect of your heart not beating for that length of time. Sometimes you don't remember everything, but it's come back, and it's just was the weirdest thing. I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. But I do, honestly, and I talked to my cardiologist about it, and he said, absolutely, the trauma to my chest from those elbows could have knocked my heart, could have been hard enough to kind of knock your heart out of rhythm.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know it, and it would start slowly, and then just get more and more and more out of rhythm until it just seized up.
Your heart is in a cattywampus state, as we would say on a Steve Austin show. So what's the prognosis? You're good. You're back at work. You're feeling 100%. You're good to go?
I absolutely feel 100%. As a matter of fact, I want to go in and sit down with Vince and say, hey, I want to come back and do something on the show. I would love to do get back involved with and have a match or two on Raw or at a pay-per-view.
You still want to get back in the ring?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, definitely. Still want
You ain't got that out of your system yet?
Yes.
You still hadn't got that out of your system?
No, never.